Let's now have a word with Priyanka Mogul, who is a breaking news reporter for the International Business Times UK. She was there at the protest and covering the story in London. Welcome to the programme, Priyanka.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, Priyanka. Now describe what you saw.
So, I was there as a journalist, which I think was really beneficial for me because it meant I got to kind of see things from a range of different people's eyes. And I was there straight from the beginning, and when I got there, it was quite a very peaceful, almost quite small protest. And things very, very quickly started to become unpleasant. Now, when that happened, I got to speak to a range of different people, and what I took away from that was that this was never meant to be a violent protest. So I think it's important to highlight that a lot of the protesters, in fact, the majority of them who were there that day, are very, very upset at how things turned out. And by mid-afternoon, there was this clear sense of disappointment because one of the main things I keep highlighting to people about this is that many of the protesters were elderly men and women. And when I interviewed them before everything started to kick off, it was very evident that, they were not there to cause trouble. None of them were. So any notion that this was a group of violent young men is simply untrue. And when I look back at the photos from the day, you can see the men and women and children who took the day off from school to be there. And when things did start to turn unpleasant, the majority of protesters were not the ones involved with the altercations with the police. That's not what it was. The majority of protesters were hanging back. They were handing out free food and water. They were handing out leaflets to raise awareness about the cause. And those who were closer to the action, many of them were helping maintain calm by urging protesters and bystanders to move away when police asked them to move away. So I saw a lot of protesters working with police to make sure things were not getting too chaotic.
Sure.
So
now, that picture, paints, a view, I guess, of a lot of the protesters coming together, helping out the police. But nevertheless, 20 arrests and one policeman injured.
Yes, that's true. And now what I've been hearing over the last few days is that all 20 people who were arrested have been released without charge. Now, the Metropolitan Police wouldn't confirm this for me when I spoke to them on Friday, so I'm not too sure on that. But if they have been released without charge, then my assumption would be that none of them did do anything violent. Now, what I have seen is videos emerging of a policeman breaking a Sikh flag in half, and another video of a Sikh man having his turban removed when police tackled him. And I saw this man there on the day, and he was near a policeman, and he didn't have his turban on, and he was also a very elderly man. So, look, I have no doubt that the police were there just trying to do their job, and they have a very difficult job to do.
Yeah.
But in my personal opinion, a couple of the actions that were taken on the day, it just seemed a bit unnecessary. And
Priyanka, on that point, we contacted Metropolitan Police, and obviously, it's a fast-moving incident. This has been really since the protest itself. They've said that they were fully aware of the planned demonstrated protest. They said that there was some sort of blockage for the road network. They also said that additional officers, including those from the mounted branch, were mobilised to the area. They did say a small group of protesters turned violent towards the police during an altercation. They've said that one officer was injured, which we know with a head injury. They then said there have been 20 arrests, the majority of which have been for a fray. So that was at that point.
Yes, that's true. I think, I'm not trying to dispute what the Metropolitan policemen are saying because I don't see why they would need to lie about any of this, and I'm sure they're not. I'm sure there were protesters on the day who may have gotten a bit riled up. And as someone who was not involved in the protest directly, when all these extra police started to come in, for me it was almost a bit comical at first because my first thought was, wow, do we really need that many policemen for something like this? I know they blocked the road, but surely you don't need that many police. And for me it was quite funny at first. It stopped being funny when I started to see the mounted police and the policemen with shields and more police coming in. And it really stopped being funny very quickly. I started to feel a bit uncomfortable because you could feel tension rising. You could feel quite a foreboding sense of what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that was quite intimidating for us as bystanders and for the protesters.
Priyanka, if I can just pause.
Yes, that's right. I mean, so for me, it was, I got uncomfortable when I saw so many police because, as a lot of people will know, one of the issues that they were protesting against is the killing of allegedly two Sikh protesters in Punjab by policemen during a protest. So to kind of see this happening again in London, where we have a lot of Sikh people protesting and then a very heavy police presence, I think amongst the protesters themselves, there might have been a bit of a sense of, oh, here come the police again.
Sure. Now, Priyanka, what I mean, largely a peaceful protest, you say, and then it turned a little bit nasty. Now, what do you think caused the turn? Was it, that the minority people? Did you manage to see any of that? What was it that changed things?
I think from speaking to a lot of people who were there on the day, I think a lot of protesters feel like they were slightly disrespected by police when they came in. I had a lot of people saying, yes, we understand that police had to come in to kind of maintain order, but what they're very much against is the things like the breaking of the flag, which they feel was a bit unnecessary. And then when that started to happen, and you saw the police doing stuff like that, I think there was kind of a group mentality where we have to protect our fellow protesters against stuff like this happening throughout the day. Because why should a policeman break our flag? That seemed to be the general kind of sentiment that was rising throughout the afternoon.
We'll certainly be able to put those allegations to the Metropolitan Police about that, because I know there's videos doing the rounds, and you would have probably seen this as well. Lots of anger, I guess, in the Sikh community. Have the Indian government had anything to say about this? Because remember, the protest here was about something that was happening over in India. So have the Indian government even responded?
I mean, not that I know of, and that was one of the questions as a journalist that I was asking people on the day at the protest. What do you think the Indian government should do? Now, Modi is coming to the UK in November, and I think this protest comes at a very crucial time because we are trying to raise awareness in the UK to make sure that things are going to be addressed when Modi's here. I think
Sure, and
that's
just to stop you there, just to let people know, the Indian Prime Minister Modi.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. He's meant to be here in mid-November, and he'll be doing a massive talk at Wembley Stadium, sorry. And I know a lot of people who were there on Thursday at the protest are also planning on protesting against Modi when he's here. So I think there's a general sense among the Sikh community of why isn't Prime Minister Modi addressing these issues? Why hasn't he said anything? And that was a very strong feeling that I got on Thursday at the protest, that this is directed directly back to India. They want an answer from the Prime Minister.
Sure, well, that's really interesting. I think it's really interesting to hear your thoughts, actually, Priyanka. It's the first time we've spoken, so appreciate your time on this. And yes, and you do say, obviously, you were intimidated in being there, but we appreciate the fact you were there, because otherwise we wouldn't have you on, in fact, on the radio. But thank you so much for chatting to me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Priyanka.